Welcome to the deep dive. Ever wondered why some workout gear feels amazing and other stuff just leaves you clammy or cold?
Yeah, that's a common problem.
Well, today we're diving headfirst into the science of sportswear. We've got a really interesting research article here.
Oh, yeah. Where's it from?
It's from the Materials Journal, and it's called Thermo Physiological Comfort Properties of Sportswear with Different Combination of Inner and Outer Layers.
Okay, sounds specific.
It is. Think of this as your, shortcut to understanding what really makes high-performance activewear tick.
And it's so relevant now, isn't it? I mean, everyone's more active, outdoors, indoors.
Exactly. We're demanding more from our clothes. It's not just fashion anymore.
Definitely function, whether you're on the trails or just, running errands. Comfort is key.
Totally.
Yeah.
And if you've ever stood there, looking at a wall of gear, wondering what all the different layers and materials actually do, well, you're not alone.
Guilty.
This research tackles that head-on. It looks specifically at bilayered sportswear.
Ah, so like a base layer and an outer shell combined.
Precisely. An inner layer against your skin, an outer layer facing the element. And the big idea is that this two-layer approach can be way better at managing things like heat and sweat.
Better than just a single piece of fabric, you mean?
Yeah, that's what this research investigates.
What I find cool about studies like this is when they're really systematic.
And this one seems to be. How do they set it up?
Well, the researchers basically created 12 different sportswear recipes.
Recipes. I like that.
Yeah, by combining 3 different inner layers with 4 different outer layers. And these weren't just lab fabrics.
Oh, real-world stuff.
Exactly. Sourced from commercial sportswear brands, Pertex, O-Style, Nordblanc, Husky, Altisport, names you might recognize.
Okay, so it's like a sportswear bake-off, using actual ingredients we might buy.
Pretty much.
So our mission today is to sift through this research and answer a really practical question for you, the listener. How do these different combos of inner and outer layers actually affect how comfortable you feel?
Right. We're talking warmth, coolness, how it handles sweat.
And even in that feeling when you first put it on, right? That initial, ooh, this feels nice, or ooh, this feels weird.
Exactly. And to get these answers, they really got into the nitty-gritty of the fabrics.
Okay, break it down for us. What were the inner layers like?
So there were 3 inner layers, different materials, different blends, all had a ripstop weave, apparently.
Okay.
The first one, IL-1, was mostly polyester 90% with 10% elastane for stretch. Pretty standard stuff.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
Then IL-2 was a mix, 60% cotton, 30% polyester, 10% elastane. A bit of natural fiber in there.
Interesting. Cotton in sportswear can be tricky sometimes.
It can, yeah. And the third one, IL-3, was just 100% elastane. Super stretchy, I imagine.
Okay, so polyblend, cotton blend, and full-on elastane for the inside. What about the outer layers, the shells?
4 different ones there. 2, OL1 and OL2, were 100% polyamide, that's nylon, basically with a polyurethane coating, a PU coating.
Ah, like for water resistance.
Often, yeah. Then OL3 was a polyester elastane blend, 955, plain knitted. And the last one, OL4, was 100% polyester, plain woven, and it had a printed design.
Wow, quite a variety. Polyamide, polyester, coated, uncoated, woven, knitted.
They covered a lot of bases you'd find in jackets or outer pants.
Okay, so they've got their 12 combinations stitched together. How did they actually test them? What were they measuring?
They ran them through a whole battery of tests. First, they measured the properties of each layer before combining them.
Smart. Establish a baseline.
Exactly. Then they tested the bilayer fabrics. They looked at thermal resistance. That's basically insulation, how well it resists heat flow.
Crucial for warmth.
Yep. Then thermal conductivity, how quickly heat moves through, kind of the opposite.
Of cooling down.
Essentially, yeah. Then thermal absorptivity, that's the one related to the initial warm or cool feeling on contact.
Okay.
They also measured some more technical things about heat flow density, both peak and stationary, and really importantly, water vapor permeability.
Which is breathability, how well sweat gets out.
You got it. How easily water vapor passes through.
Sounds comprehensive. What sort of lab equipment do you need for all that? Must be pretty specialized.
Oh, definitely. They used specific instruments. For the thermal stuff, something called an LM beta. And for the breathability, the water vapor part, they use a Permet test. And they followed standard procedures like ISO 10092 to make sure the results were solid and comparable.
Right. Standardized testing is key. Okay, the stage is set. 12 combos, rigorous tests. Let's dig into the findings. Thermal resistance, first keeping warm. Which combo won?
Right. Thermal resistance, how well it insulates. The winner, the one with the highest resistance, was sample 8 or S8.
And what was S8 made of again?
That was the inner layer with the cotton blend IL-2, the 60% cotton, 30% polyester, 10% elastane 1, paired with the 100% polyester woven outer layer, OL4.
Huh. Cotton blend inside, polyester outside for maximum warmth. That's interesting.
Yeah, it seems that specific combination trapped heat really well.
So S8 is the go-to for cold weather, based on this study. Were there any others that were close? Any runners-up for insulation?
Yes, a couple did well too. S4 was good. That had the mostly polyester inner layer, IL1, with that same 100% polyester outer layer, OL4.
Okay, same outer layer again?
And S12 also performed well. That used the all-elastane inner, IL3, again with that same polyester outer layer, OL4.
So that outer layer, OL4, the 100% polyester woven one, seems pretty important for warmth, showing up the top 3.
It does, yeah. The researchers pointed out that generally thicker textiles have higher thermal resistance, trapped air,
Right.
And this particular polyester outer layer was likely thicker, plus polyester itself has properties that help resist heat flow and add stability.
Makes sense. So for winter gear, maybe look for a thicker feel and a polyester outer.
That seems like a reasonable takeaway, yeah.
What about the other end of the scale? Which combinations were, least insulating?
The ones with the lowest thermal resistance often involve those polyamide outer layers, OL1 and OL2, especially the ones with the PU coating. They tended to be thinner overall.
Less material, less trapped air, less warmth. Got it.
Pretty much.
Okay, so that's warmth. Now, what if you want heat to escape? Let's flip to thermal conductivity. How quickly heat moves through. Which combo was best at that?
The highest thermal conductivity was found in S5.
And S5 was?
That paired the cotton blend inner layer, IL2, with one of the 100% polyamide PU-coated outer layers, OL1.
Oh, that's the same inner layer IL2 that was in the warmest combo, S8? How does that work?
Huh, good catch. It really shows how the combination is everything, doesn't it?
Definitely.
The researchers thought this S5 combo might just have been thinner overall than S8, even with the same inner layer. Also, cotton blends can sometimes conduct heat a bit better than pure synthetics like polyester.
And so if you want heat moving away, maybe a thinner cotton polyamide mix could be the way to go.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
It suggests that pathway let heat through more easily.
What about the ones that were bad at conducting heat? The ones that held on to it more?
Well, interestingly, some of the samples with those PU coatings, S9, S10, S11, tended to have lower thermal conductivity.
Lower. So the coating trapped heat.
It seemed like it might act as a bit of a barrier, trapping air perhaps, which slows down the heat transfer. The polyamide fabrics themselves, without the coating effect, generally showed slightly higher conductivity, though.
Okay, so a PU coating might keep rain out. Good for waterproofing, maybe.
Yeah.
But perhaps not ideal if you're overheating and trying to dump heat fast.
That's a potential trade-off, yeah.
Right. Let's talk about how these feel right against the skin. That initial sensation, warm or cool, that's thermal absorptivity.
Exactly. High absorptivity means it feels cool initially because it pulls heat away from your skin quickly. Low absorptivity feels warmer.
Okay, so which ones felt warmer at first touch? Lower absorptivity.
The samples S6, S4, and S12 came out with lower values here. They all used that 100% polyester outer layer, OL4, just with different inner layers.
Again with the OL4 outer.
Yeah. The researchers thought maybe the thickness of these combinations, or something about that specific polyester surface, perhaps even the print on one version, made them feel a bit warmer initially.
So thicker polyester might not give you that instant cool feeling. Which ones did feel cooler? Higher absorptivity.
Those were S1, S2, and S3. These all used the mostly polyester inner layer, IL1, paired with the 100% polyamide outer layers, OL1 and OL2, some with the PU coating.
The poly-poly combination wasn't in the cool feeling group.
Right. It seemed the lamination or coating on the polyamide and maybe overall thickness played a role here. And the general principle holds. Smoother, flatter surfaces usually feel cooler than rougher, thicker ones.
So if you like that immediate cool touch when you pull on your gear, maybe look towards those polyamide outers with a polyester inner.
That's what this data suggests, yeah. And this initial feel is also related to another measurement. They took the ratio of maximum to stationary heat flow density.
Okay, what does that tell us?
A higher ratio basically means a bigger initial rush of heat exchange when you touch it. So a more noticeable cool or warm feeling right at the start.
And which samples had a higher ratio, a bigger initial whoosh of heat?
Interestingly, the ones with higher ratios, S8, S12, and S4, were the same ones that had higher overall thermal resistance, the warmer ones.
Huh. So the warmest ones also had the most noticeable initial temperature interaction.
It seems so. Particularly those bilayers with a PE-coated polyester outer layer, they tended to show higher values here. Conversely, the ones with the mostly polyester inner layer and a PU-coated polyamide outer showed lower initial heat exchange.
Okay, that's getting technical, but it connects the initial feel to the overall warmth. What about heat flow over the longer term? Once things settle down. That's stationary heat flow density.
Precisely. This measures the rate heat keeps flowing through the fabric once everything reaches a steady state. It's about sustained heat management.
Right. Which combinations were best at continuously moving heat away? Higher stationary heat flow.
Samples S3, S4, and S12 showed higher values here. These often involve that 100% polyester outer layer, OL4.
So polyester outers might be better at letting heat dissipate steadily over time.
That seems to be the trend in this study. On the flip side, samples like S8, S7, S6, and S5, several of which had that cotton blend inner layer, IL-2 had lower stationary heat flow, meaning heat moved through them more slowly in the long run.
So different fabrics handle heat differently right at the start versus over the long haul. Fascinating.
It really is complex.
Okay, now for a really crucial one, especially if you're working up a sweat, breathability, water vapor resistance. We want low resistance here, right? So sweat vapor can escape easily.
Absolutely. Low resistance means high breathability, keeps you drier, more comfortable.
So which sportswear samples basically slam the door on sweat vapor? High resistance, low breathability.
The study found S7, S9, and S11 had higher water vapor resistance. They were less breathable.
And what were they made of? Any patterns?
Yeah, these often involved either the 100% polyamide outer layer with the PU coating, OL1, OL2, or that polyester elastane blend outer layer, OL3. The researchers figured that the increased fabric thickness in some, and definitely those coatings, acted like barriers.
Like wearing a plastic bag almost.
A bit like that, yeah. Great for keeping rain out, maybe, but not for letting moisture from the inside out.
Okay, so avoid those if you sweat a lot or exercise intensely. Which ones were the winners for breathability? Low water vapor resistance.
The star performers here, the more breathable ones, included S12, S2, S10, S1, and S8.
Quite a few good ones then. Any common factors?
Well, one thing they noted was that sportswear using the mostly polyester inner layer, IL1, generally showed lower resistance, better breathability.
Ah, so that polysterolestane base layer seems good for wicking moisture vapor away.
It appears so. The study really concluded that both the fabric structure, the knit or weave, and the materials themselves, plus things like coatings, all impact breathability.
So if staying dry during activity is your top priority, maybe lean towards that mostly polyester inner layer and be wary of heavy coatings on the outer layer.
That seems like a very practical takeaway from this research, yes.
It really sounds like there's often a trade-off, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like you gain water resistance with a coating, but you sacrifice breathability.
That's a classic challenge in sportswear design, and this study highlights it well. Different layer combos strike that balance differently.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up. You're listening to this standing in that sportswear aisle. What are the big lessons here?
Well, I think the research gives some pretty clear pointers. If maximum warmth is your goal, say for winter sports or cold weather, that combination of the cotton polyester elastane inner layer with 100% polyester outer layer, S8, looked like the best bet for thermal resistance.
Okay, S8, winter warrior mode. Got it.
Exactly. But if breathability is number one, maybe for summer running or intense gym sessions.
Right, avoiding the sweat lodge feeling.
Then sportswear, using that mostly polyester inner layer, IL1, generally performed better, showing lower water vapor resistance. And definitely be mindful of those PU coatings on the outer layer. They tend to increase warmth but reduce breathability.
It's really incredible how much science is packed into something we often just grab off the rack.
It really is.
This makes it so clear that choosing the right gear isn't just about the brand or the color. It's about understanding how these materials and layers work together for your body, for your activity.
Absolutely. Knowing a bit about these thermo-physiological properties, warmth, coolness, breathability, it lets you make much smarter choices. You'll likely be more comfortable and maybe even perform better.
This has been genuinely eye-opening. I'm definitely going to be looking at those labels and feeling the fabrics differently next time I shop for workout clothes.
It makes you think, doesn't it? And it also makes you wonder, what's next?
How so?
Well, with all the advances in textile tech, smart fabrics and new materials, could we see layer combinations that are even more optimized? Maybe ones that adapt to conditions or activity levels automatically.
Wow, like clothes that know when to be warmer or more breathable.
Maybe. It's definitely something interesting to think about, where this technology might go.
A fascinating thought to end on. Thanks so much for breaking down this complex research with me today.
My pleasure. Always interesting to see the science behind everyday things.
Until our next deep dive.